The servant girl was given a basin of water because the court wanted her shame to look useful. That was how royal cruelty often dressed itself in the house of Verhold. No whip, no blade, no chain around the throat. Only a silver basin placed before the throne, a blood-stained war banner dropped at Morel Rook's knees, and one order spoken loudly enough for every noble in the moon hall to hear. Wash what your filthy hands have ruined. Morel knelt on the cold marble with her sleeves rolled to the elbow and her dark hair pinned badly at the back of her neck. She had not been allowed time to fix it after the guards dragged her from the laundry vault. Soap still whitened the cracks of her fingers. Old water soaked the hem of her gray servant dress. One knee bled where she had struck the stair on the way up. Before her lay the moon-blood banner. It was older than the throne behind it. Silver cloth, black wolf crest, a border of red thread said to have been dyed with the first Alpha King's battlefield blood. It had been carried through 7 wars, lifted over dead sons, kissed by widows, and locked away after victory feasts so no common hand could touch it. Tonight, everyone believed Morel had stained it. The mark stretched across the banner's lower corner, dark and ugly, shaped like a handprint dragged through wet ash. A handprint, the court said, was hers. Morel stared at it without speaking. That was her first mistake in most rooms. Silence made the guilty look stubborn and the innocent look weak. But she had learned long ago that a servant's denial was only another cloth for powerful people to wring. Lady Selvara Morn stood beside the Alpha King's dais, radiant in pale gold silk. The court called her victory blessed. Wherever she walked, soldiers straightened. Wounded wolves lifted their heads. Candles burned brighter. Even the old war trophies seemed to gleam when she passed. She was to become Luna before the next moon. Her smile tonight was gentle enough to cut. Poor thing, Selvara said. Perhaps she did not understand what she touched. A few nobles murmured. They liked mercy better when it humiliated someone. Morel kept her eyes on the banner. Alpha King Draven Verhold sat on the black throne above her, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, wrapped in a wolf fur cloak that made him look more like winter than man. His scarred right hand rested on the arm of the throne. His left remained hidden beneath the cloak. Behind him, his wolf shadow lay stretched across the steps. Too still, Morel had washed enough battlefield linens to know the difference between rest and collapse. The king's wolf shadow should have been immense, a living darkness with silver eyes and breath like smoke. Instead, it looked thin at the edges, its ribs faintly visible where shadow should have been solid. No one else seemed to notice, or no one wished to. Draven's Chaza lowered to Morel. "You were found alone with the banner," he said. His voice carried no softness, but it did not carry satisfaction either. Morel lifted her head. "I was sent to fetch the mourning cloths from the vault." "By whom?" The hall went still. Selvara's gold-lit smile did not move. Morel felt the trap close around her. If she named the steward who had given the order, he would deny it. If she named the guard who unlocked the vault, he would be protected by Selvara's house. If she said nothing, silence would do their work for them. So she chose the only dignity left. "I was sent," she said. That is all a servant is usually allowed to know. A few nobles laughed under their breath. Draven did not. His eyes sharpened, almost unwillingly. Selvara stepped closer to the throne. The golden air around her brightened. "Majesty, the banner must be cleansed before the war blessing tomorrow. Let the girl wash it before witnesses. If the stain is common filth, it will fade. If it is betrayal, the moonblood cloth will remember." At the word betrayal, several faces turned toward Morel. There it was. Not servant. Not girl. Traitor's daughter. Her mother, Sarah Rook, had washed battlefield banners after the Ash Ravine campaign. She had been accused of hiding the names of deserters, scrubbing defeat into victory, so the crown would not know how many wolves had died, abandoned by their own commanders. Sarah had gone to the gallows saying only one sentence: "The cloth keeps more truth than kings can bear. Mirella ha binten." Since then, every basin she touched seemed to carry the rope with it. Draven looked at the banner, then at Morel's raw hands. For a moment, his hidden left hand moved beneath the cloak, as if something there had heard her name before he had. Selvara noticed. So did Mirelle. The king's face hardened again before the court could make meaning from the movement. "Wash it," he said. Morel reached for the cloth. The moment her fingers touched the silver fabric, The basin water turned red. A gasp moved through the hall. Selvara's eyes brightened. "Blood guilt," she whispered. Morel almost pulled back. Almost. Then the banner twitched beneath her hand. Not like cloth caught in wind, like something wounded, trying to breathe. She looked down. The dark stain on the lower corner was no longer shaped like her hand. It was opening. Thread by thread, the ash-black mark split into thin red lines, spreading across the silver weave. The basin water trembled. Names began rising to the surface, written in blood that did not dissolve. Arvenval, Merritt Crow, Hale of the Third Gate. Names no court bard had sung. Names no victory feast had carried. Morel's pulse struck hard in her throat. The Moonblood banner was not proving her guilt. It was bleeding the forgotten dead. "Stop her," Selvara said. Too quickly. Draven heard it. So did Mirel. The king leaned forward, and his wolf shadow gave a sound so faint it might have been pain. Morel dipped both hands into the red water. The basin went cold as a grave. She began to wash. Not to clean the stain away, to uncover what had been hidden beneath it. The banner drank the water greedily. More names surfaced, crowded and desperate, bleeding through the silver cloth until the black wolf crest seemed to stand in a field of dead soldiers. The nobles recoiled. Several old captains went white. One dropped to his knees when he saw his brother's name appear near Morel's thumb. Draven rose from the throne. The movement sent a ripple through the court. Selvara reached for his arm. "Majesty, it is a servant's trick." His wolf shadow tried to rise with him. It failed. Mirel saw it collapse before anyone else did. At the same moment, Lady Selvara's golden aura flared brighter. The banner yarked in Mirel's hands. The silver cloth lifted by itself, heavy with blood and names, and turned toward the court like a painting waking from sleep. The black wolf crest stretched, twisted, and became an image. Not of an old battle, not of Ash Ravine, of the Moon Hall, of the throne, of Selvara Morn standing in gold silk, and beneath her shining feet a great black wolf lay dying, its silver eyes fixed on Alpha King Draven, while its courage bled upward into her light. The court screamed. Draven went utterly still. Selvara's hand tightened around his arm, and the dying wolf inside the banner opened its mouth. No sound came out. Only one fresh name bled across the cloth. Draun Vajehol. The court did not scream for long. Fear in royal halls rarely lasted, unless someone powerful gave it permission. Lady Selvara Morn gave none. Her hand remained around Alpha King Draven Verhold's arm, pale fingers resting lightly against his black sleeve, while her golden aura brightened until the blood image in the Moonblood banner looked almost like a trick of shadow. Behind her, candles flared. The old war shields along the walls gleamed. The frightened nobles took one breath, then another, and began looking for a safer truth to believe. "A servant's blood can foul old cloth," Selvara said gently, "especially a servant born from treason." Morel's hands tightened around the wet banner. The silver fabric pulsed. Not like cloth, like a throat trying to speak around drowning. Draven did not look at Selvara. He looked at the image in the banner, his own wolf, black and immense, lying beneath Selvara's shining feet, while pale courage bled upward from its ribs into her golden light. Then he looked at the wolf shadow collapsed behind his throne. The beast's silver eyes were open, watching him, ashamed somehow, as if it had been dying quietly to spare him the sight of it. "Bring torches closer," Draven said. A council lord stiffened. "Majesty, if the cloth is corrupted." "Closer." The torches came. Firelight struck the Moonblood banner. The image did not vanish. It deepened. The dying wolf's ribs moved once beneath Selvara's painted feet, and the fresh name across the cloth bled darker. Draun Vehold. Morel stared at it until the letters blurred. His name should not be there. The banner had been bleeding names of the forgotten dead. Arvenvale, Merritt Crow, Hale of the Third Gate, men buried under victory songs. Wolves no court had mourned properly. But Draven was alive, standing before her, breathing. The banner was not naming him dead. It was naming him claimed by death. Selvara released Draven's arm. Only then did Morel notice how quickly the king's hidden left hand curled beneath his cloak, as if something under the fabric had cramped in pain when Selvara's touch left him. Selvara saw Mirelli see it. Her smile thinned. "Majesty," she said, "allow me to remove the girl before this becomes spectacle." "It is already spectacle," Draven answered. His voice was quiet. The hall heard it anyway. He descended one step from the dais. His wolf shadow tried again to rise with him. Its forelegs trembled. Smoke thinning around the paws then gave out. No one moved toward it. No one dared acknowledge a king's wolf too weak to stand. Mirelle did. She could not help it. Her eyes went to the beast with the instinct of someone who had washed death from fur and linen and armor straps until she knew the posture of pain better than the posture of sleep. Draven caught the glance. Something passed across his face. Not gratitude, not softness. Recognition sharpened by discomfort. "You saw it before the banner showed it," he said. The court went still again. Morel lowered her gaze. "I saw it lying too still." Selvara laughed softly. "A laundry girl now diagnoses royal wolves?" "No," Morel said. Her voice surprised even herself by holding. "I know what dying looks like when powerful people call it rest." The words struck the hall hard. A few old captains looked down. Draven's scarred right hand tightened on the stair rail. Selvara's golden ura fladded. The banner convulsed in Morel's hands. She nearly dropped it, but the cloth twisted around her wrists, not binding her, only demanding she hold on. The basin water surged red, then gold, then red again. Something bright slipped from Selvara's aura and fell like honeyed light into the water. Mirelle saw it. So did the banner. The gold touched the red water. A name vanished. Arvenvale disappeared from the basin's surface, as if swallowed. At the same instant, Selvara's beauty sharpened. Her cheeks flushed. Her light grew warmer. The closest wounded soldier, standing guard at the lower pillars, straightened with sudden pride, then staggered, as if a memory had been taken from his bones. Mirelle's stomach turned. Not blessing, feeding. She plunged both hands into the basin and dragged the banner through the water. The vanished name returned. Arvenvale bled back through the cloth near her thumb, shaking like a man pulled from deep water. The golden light around Selvara flickered. Selvara's eyes flashed. "Stop touching it." This time, her voice carried no silk. Draven heard the command beneath the fear. His gaze moved from Selvara to Morel's raw hands in the basin. "No one touches the girl," he said. The order sent a ripple through the guards. Selvara turned to him slowly. "You protect treason?" Draven did not look away from the basin. "I protect evidence until it finishes bleeding." It was not mercy. Not yet. But it put the guards' hands back on their hilts instead of Morel's arms. Mirelle bent over the banner. Her fingers ached from the cold. The red water had gone thick around her wrists. Every stroke of washing brought more names to the surface, but now she watched the gold between them. It moved like a thief through blood, searching for places where courage had been left unguarded. She scrubbed the corner where the handprint had been. The cloth opened again. This time, the image changed. A battlefield appeared inside the silver weave. Mud, rain, broken spears, wolves dying under torn banners. Men crawled toward a ridge where a golden carriage waited untouched by arrows. A woman in pale gold stood beside it, younger than Selvara, but with the same proud tilt of the chin. Morel felt the hall lean toward the cloth. Then the battlefield image showed hands. Women's hands. Washer hands. Red to the wrist, gathering torn banners from dead soldiers and pressing names into wet cloth before commanders could call the dead nameless. Morel stopped breathing. One of the women turned her face. Sera Rook, her mother, older than Morel remembered. Tired. Beautiful in the way endurance could become beauty after every softer thing had been burned away. The court murmured. Selvara's face went white. Morel reached for the image, as if cloth could become skin. "Mother," she whispered. The banner answered under her fingertips. Sera Rook looked straight out of the blood-soaked weave. Then she lifted one hand and pressed it from inside the cloth against Morel's palm. The basin water went black. Across the moonblood banner, beneath the dead soldiers' names, one sentence appeared in blood-bright thread. The washer did not hide defeat. The letters trembled. Then another line formed beneath it. She hid the betrayal until a living king could survive, knowing it. Draven went still. Morel looked up. His wolf shadow had raised its head. Just a little. Selvara stepped back from the banner. Too late. The cloth lifted higher between Morel's hands, and from its bleeding surface came the sound of hundreds of wolves inhaling at once. Then the dead soldiers spoke one sentence together. She drinks us. She drinks us. The dead soldiers' voices moved through the moon hall, like cold wind through a battlefield after the screaming ended. No one laughed. No one whispered traitor's daughter. For the first time in Morel Rook's life, the court looked at the cloth in her hands with more fear than disgust. The moonblood banner hung between her bleeding fingers, silver fabric soaked red from the basin, its black wolf crest half buried beneath names that kept rising through the weave. Arvin Vale. Merritt Crow. Hale of the Third Gate. Others crowded behind them, some written clearly, some torn at the edges, as if memory itself had tried to chew them away. Lady Selvara Morn stood very still beside the throne. Her golden aura had not vanished. That made it worse. It glowed brighter than ever, soft and warm around her pale gold gown, making her look blessed even while the dead accused her. Candles leaned toward her. The old shields behind the dais shone in her light. Several young soldiers near the pillars lifted their heads as if comforted by her presence, though their faces were gray with fear. Morel saw the trick now. The aura did not make courage. It reminded wounded men of courage that had already been stolen. Selvara's eyes moved over the court, measuring which fear would obey first. Battlefield cloths carry echoes, she said. Everyone knows this. Dead men mutter blame. They always have. The banner shuddered in Mirella's hands. The basin water slapped against its silver rim. Draven Verhold descended another step from the throne. His wolf shadow still lay behind him, ribs faint, muzzle low, but one silver eye had opened fully now. It fixed on the banner with the painful attention of a dying beast that had finally heard its own wound named. "Do dead men lie?" Draven asked. Selvara turned to him with a wounded look so perfect it made several nobles soften at once. "Majesty, answer." Her golden light flickered. Only once. "No," she said, "but they can be guided by living malice." Morel knew that meant her. She almost lowered the banner, almost let the court's old story close over her again. Sarah Rook's daughter. Washer blood, treason in the hands. A girl born from a woman hanged for hiding what kings could not bear. Then her mother's face moved faintly inside the cloth. Not speaking, only watching. Morel tightened her grip. "My mother washed banners," she said. "She did not command the dead." Selvara smiled softly. "No, she merely taught them where to point." A few nobles nodded. Draven's hidden left hand twitched beneath his cloak. Morel saw pain cross his face, fast and buried. Selvara took one step toward him. At once, his wolf shadow sagged lower. The golden aura around her brightened, and a thin stream of pale light lifted from the wolf shadow's ribs, barely visible, like breath stolen from winter air. Morel moved before she thought. She plunged the moonblood banner deep into the basin and dragged it hard through the red water. The cloth snapped, like a sail in storm wind. The pale stream broke. Draven inhaled sharply. Silvara stopped. Everyone saw that. Not clearly enough to understand. Clearly enough to fear understanding. Morel bent over the basin, heart hammering. Her fingers found a thick, golden stain hidden beneath the red handprint. It had not been visible before. Gold thread, worked into the silver cloth so finely it looked like blessing until water touched it. She scrubbed. The gold resisted. She scrubbed harder. Her raw knuckles split. Blood ran into the basin and the banner drank it greedily. The golden thread began to unwind from the cloth in thin, shining strands, each one pulling a name with it. Arvin Vale dimmed. Merritt Crow dimmed. A dozen others blurred. Selvara's light swelled. Morel understood with sick clarity. Every time the gold brightened, a soldier's name weakened. Every time Selvara entered a room glowing like victory, some dead wolf was being forgotten more completely. "Majesty," Morel said, voice low. Draven's chaza cut to her. She lifted one dripping strand of gold between two fingers. "This is not sewn into the banner." Selvara's expression hardened. "Mirai le pulled." The gold strand came free with a wet, tearing sound. Across the hall, one of the old captains cried out and clutched his chest. On the banner, Merritt Crow's name returned in full. In Selvara's aura, one patch of gold went dark. Draven's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" he asked. Morel looked at the strand, trembling between her fingers. It was warm, too warm. It pulsed like a living vein. The banner answered for her. Letters formed beneath her hand, slow and thick with blood. Courage thread. The court recoiled. Selvara's voice sharpened. "Forbidden battlefield superstition." "No," said an old captain from the lower hall. All eyes turned to him. His face had gone ashen. He wore the iron pin of Ash Ravine on his cloak, though one sleeve hung empty where an arm had been. "I have seen courage thread once," he said, "after a rout. When men should have broken and did not, it lingered on the dead. White, gold, like dawn, caught in blood." Selvara looked at him. The captain lowered his eyes at once, but the words had already left him. Draven came down the final step. "Who harvests it?" The captain swallowed. "No honorable house." The moon hall changed. Not loudly. Worse. Quietly. A court could survive screams. Quiet meant people were beginning to count the distance between themselves and the accused. Selvara's smile vanished. "You let a servant lead you by blood and ghost cloth," she said to Draven. "That is what killed kings before you, not enemies. Pity." Draven's jaw tightened. For a moment, Morel thought he would retreat behind rank, behind war, behind the easy safety of calling her dangerous. Instead, he looked at the guards nearest her. "If she bleeds, no one moves toward her without my order." The words were not tender. They were law. Morel felt them land around her like a shield made from steel still too cold to trust. Selvara's eyes flashed. The golden aura around her flared so bright, the hall filled with warm light. Wounded soldiers straightened again. Nobles breathed easier. Even the old captain's empty sleeve lifted slightly, as if memory were trying to give him back a hand. Morel's stomach turned. Selvara was feeding them what had been stolen from better men. And they wanted it. That was the worst of it. They wanted the lie because it made them feel brave, without asking what courage had cost. The banner twisted in Morelli's hands. The black wolf crest opened its painted mouth. This time, only one voice came from the cloth. "Sira Rooks. Wash the bride's light. Mirelle Fros." Selvara stepped back. Draven heard it too. His wolf shadow lifted its head another inch. Morel looked at the basin, then at Selvara's glowing figure beside the throne. Not the banner, the bride's light. She dipped both hands into the red water, lifted them dripping, and flung the blood water toward Selvara's golden aura. The court screamed. The water never touched Selvara's skin. It struck the light around her. Gold peeled away like wet paint. Beneath it, for one terrible heartbeat, the court saw what stood behind Lady Selvara Morn. Not a Luna, not a blessed bride. A tall shadow wearing a mantle made from hundreds of torn wolf hearts. At its center, beating faintly, was Draven's dying wolf shadow, and around that heart, the courage thread tightened like a noose. The thing behind Lady Selvara Morn vanished almost as soon as the court saw it. Gold rushed back over her like a curtain. One heartbeat, the moon hall had seen the shadow mantle. Hundreds of torn wolf, hearts stitched together by courage, thread, Draven's dying wolf caught at the center like a black heart in a golden cage. The next heartbeat, Selvara stood radiant again. Pale gold, silk, gentle face, victory blessed light. But the court had already flinched. That mattered. Morel stood with the empty basin tilted in both hands, red water dripping from its rim onto the marble. Her arms shook. Her fingers ached from cold and blood. The moon blood banner hung against her knees, heavy and alive, its names brightening where Selvara's aura had peeled. No one spoke. Even Draven Vierhold did not move. He stared at Selvara with the terrible stillness of a king realizing the room around him had been built to praise his murder. Selvara recovered first. Of course she did. Women like her did not survive court by never being exposed. They survived by turning exposure into theater before fear could become judgment. She lifted one hand to her chest and looked at the red drops shining on her aura, as if Morel had thrown filth at a shrine. "There," Selvara whispered. Her voice trembled just enough. Not weakness. Craft. There is the old crime wearing a new face. The nobles shifted toward her voice, as if warmth had returned to a cold room. Mirel's stomach tightened. Salvara pointed at the banner. War, witness, blood. A murmur moved through the hall. The old captain who had spoken of courage thread went pale. Mirel had heard the phrase only once, from her mother the night before the gallows. If they ever call our hands witness, child, hide them. Draven's eyes cut to Mirel. What does that mean? Salvara answered before Mirel could. It means her line was never merely wash your blood. War witness women were battlefield witches who fed cloth with soldiers' dying breath, then used dead names to accuse living crowns. Her golden light steadied with every word. They were banned after the Ash Ravine treasons. The banner snapped in Mirel's hands. Not in denial, in anger. The names across the silver weave brightened, then dimmed, as if the dead were trying to speak through a mouth that had been stitched shut. Mirel looked down at her hands. Washer hands. Trader's daughter hands. War witness hands, if Salvara's word was truth. They looked the same as they always had. Cracked, reddened, smelling of soap, lye, and cold water. Draven descended from the final step and crossed the marble toward her. The court held its breath. Salvara saw him move and smiled faintly. Majesty, she said, if you step nearer, the banner will use your wolf against you. Draven stopped. Not from fear, from calculation. His wolf shadow lay half-risen behind him, trembling at the edge of the dais. Courage thread still glowed faintly around its ribs, leading toward Salvara's aura before vanishing inside her gold. If Draven approached too fast, Salvara would claim the banner had attacked his wolf through Mirel. Mirel understood. So did he. That was why the restraint in his face hurt more than protection might have. He did not come closer, but he turned his head toward the guards. If any blade is drawn on her, I will take the hand that holds it. The guards froze. A small protection. Not enough to save her. Enough to cost him something. Mirel gripped the banner harder. Salvara's eyes hardened before softening again for the court. Listen to him. Even now, the dead cloth bends his judgment. War, witness blood, does not reveal truth. It creates guilt until kings kneel to ghosts. Mirel lifted her head. My mother died saying the cloth kept truth. Your mother died a traitor. The banner says otherwise. The banner is in your hands. Mirel had no answer ready. That was the cleverness of it. Salvara had not denied the image. She had moved the danger from herself to Mirel's blood. If the court feared war witness women more than courage theft, the evidence would become contamination. The dead would become weapons. The servant would become the crime. The moon blood banner stirred. A single red thread lifted from its border. It curled around Mirel's thumb, not tight, guiding. The basin at her feet still held a thin pool of red water. The thread lowered itself into the water and darkened. Then the banner pulled gently toward the old captain with the empty sleeve. Mirel looked at him. His face changed. No. The banner pulled again. Not commanding. Asking. Mirel stepped toward him. The court backed away from her as if she carried plague. The captain did not. He stood shaking, eyes fixed on the cloth. Your brother's name was Merritt Crow, Mirel said. His mouth opened. No sound came. She lowered the banner until Merritt's name rested before him. Touch it. Salvara laughed once. Do not. The captain looked at Draven. Draven said nothing. That was the only permission he could safely give. The captain reached with his remaining hand. His fingers touched the blood-written name. The moonblood banner inhaled. The hall vanished from the silver weave. A battlefield rose instead. Merritt Crow stood in mud beneath a torn moon banner, young and terrified, holding the line while commanders sounded retreat behind him. Around him, soldiers did not run. They stayed because someone had told them the king still stood on the ridge. But the ridge was empty. A golden carriage waited beyond arrow range. Inside it sat a woman from House Morn, wearing a cloak sewn with fresh courage thread. Not Salvara. Her mother. The image shifted. Dead men fell. Wolves bled into mud. Washerwomen ran through arrows to gather the banners before House Morn's men could burn them. Sarah Rook took the moonblood banner in both hands and pressed names into the cloth while smoke swallowed the field. Then the vision broke. The moon hall returned. The old captain was on his knees, weeping without shame. My brother did not desert, he said. The words struck like a hammer. Mirelle looked at Salvara. Salvara's aura flickered again. Draven's wolf shadow rose another inch. For the first time, a growl moved through its throat. Selvara heard it and stopped pretending gentleness. Enough. The gold around her exploded outward. Every soldier in the hall straightened at once, eyes shining, faces emptying. Courage flooded them too quickly, too brightly, like wine poured into starving men. The guards turned toward Morel with hands on their swords. Draven's voice cracked across the hall. Hold. Some obeyed. Some did not. The nearest guard drew steel. Morel stepped back, banner clutched to her chest. The black wolf crest on the cloth opened its painted jaws. Sarah Rook's voice came through, low and urgent. Do not wash the bride now. Morel's breath caught. Wash the king. Before Morel could understand, the basin at her feet tipped by itself. Red water ran across the marble toward Draven's boots. Selvada screamed. Not in anger, in fear. The water touched Draven's shadow, and the dying wolf behind the throne began to bleed gold. Gold bled from the king's shadow like sunlight from a wound. It ran through the black shape stretched behind the throne, thin at first, then brighter, threading along the ribs of Draven Verhold's wolf shadow in tight shining lines. The beast convulsed. Its paws scraped against the marble. Its muzzle lifted, but no howl came out. The moon hall went silent. Not with awe, with terror, because no one could pretend now that Lady Selvara Morn's light was only light. The red water from Morel's basin crawled over the floor toward the king's shadow, soaking into its edges as if shadow could become cloth. Wherever it touched, hidden gold surfaced beneath the darkness. Knots, loops, stitches, cruel little hooks of courage, thread buried so deep they had almost become part of the wolf. Draven looked down at it. For one raw breath, the Alpha King did not look like Winter. He looked like a man seeing the shape of his own slow execution. Selvara moved first. Do not let that water touch him. 4 guards rushed toward the spreading red stream. Draven's voice stopped them. Stand back. The guards froze. Selvara turned to him, her golden aura flaring hard enough to throw light across every war shield in the hall. Majesty, you do not know what she is doing. Draven's eyes remained on his wolf shadow. Neither do you want me to. The words cut cleanly. Morel gripped the moonblood banner against her chest, heart hammering. The red water had reached Draven's shadow, but not enough. The courage thread did not loosen. It merely showed itself, bright and hungry, leading from the wolf's ribs across the floor toward Selvara's aura, then vanishing under her golden gown. Sarah Rook's voice whispered from the banner. Not with water alone. Morel looked down. A red thread lifted from the moonblood banner and curled around her wrist. It tugged, not toward the basin, toward Draven. The court saw. Selvara smiled slowly, seizing the danger before it found its name. There. See how the servant's witchcloth reaches for the king? War. Witness blood does not expose harm. It creates hunger. Morel stopped moving. One step toward Draven, and the court would call it attack. One touch of his shadow, and Selvara would turn protection into proof. The entire trap waited for her to become bold in the wrong way. Draven understood. He descended the last stair and stepped into the red water himself. The hall gasped. Selvara's face changed. Not much. Enough. Red water soaked the edge of Draven's boots. His wolf shadow shuddered violently behind him, and the gold threads in its ribs tightened as if the act had hurt both beast and man. Mireille stared at him. Draven did not look away from her. You were ordered to wash what was stained, he said. His voice carried through the hall. Wash. It was not the first order. This one was different. The first had been humiliation. This one was permission. Morel knelt again, not before the throne, but before the edge of the king's shadow. The old fear in her blood trembled. Servants did not touch royal shadows. Washergirls did not lay hands on kings. Traitors' daughters did not kneel close enough for a crown to bleed on them. But her mother's voice moved through the cloth at her wrists. The living can consent to truth, the dead cannot. Morel placed the moon-blood banner flat on the wet marble and pressed both palms into it. The cloth drank her blood, the basin water, the names of the dead, and the gold leaking from Draven's wolf all at once. Then she began to wash the king's shadow, not with cloth over flesh, with banner over darkness. She dragged the silver fabric gently across the wolf shadow's foreleg. Draven's breath caught. The golden thread under the shadow's skin rose like a vein pulled toward air. Morel hooked it with 2 fingers and drew it out. Pain flashed across Draven's face. Silvara cried, "Stop!" No one moved. The first strand came free. It was not long, no thicker than a hair. But as it left the wolf shadow, the beast's paw darkened, becoming solid again. At the same moment, one name on the banner burned brighter: Arvenval. A dead soldier's courage returned to his name. Morel pulled another thread, then another. Each one came out soaked in gold and black blood. Each one restored a little darkness to Draven's wolf and a little weight to the forgotten names across the cloth. The moon hall filled with quiet sounds, captains weeping, wolves whining, nobles breathing through shame they did not yet know how to carry. Silvara's aura dimmed by inches. For the first time, her beauty looked effortful. Morel reached for a thicker knot near the wolf shadow's ribs. The moment her fingers touched it, the banner opened a vision beneath her hands. Ash Ravine. Not the whole battle, only one moment. Draven younger, armored in black, standing on a ridge with blood across his face while his wolf shadow fought beside him, enormous and unbroken. Around him, soldiers rallied, though the line had already failed. Courage moved from man to man like fire. Then Housemorn's riders arrived behind the wounded. Not to rescue, to harvest. Golden hooks sank into dying wolves. Courage thread lifted from bodies before their names could settle into death. The stolen courage flowed into a sealed bridal mantle carried beneath a morn banner. A mantle waiting years for Silvara. The vision snapped shut. Morel's hands trembled over the thick knot. Silvara's voice came low and dangerous. "Washer girl, remove your hands." Mirelle did not. She looked at Draven. The court disappeared for a heartbeat. There was only the dying shadow between them, his pain, her blood, and the terrible intimacy of truth no one could make clean. "This one is deep," she said. Draven's jaw tightened. "Take it. It will hurt. It already has." Mirelle gripped the knot with both hands and pulled. Draven dropped to one knee. His wolf shadow finally howled. The sound shattered every candle in the moon hall. Gold tore from the beast's ribs in a long burning strand, and Silvara screamed as if something had been ripped from her own chest. The strand snapped free. At its end hung not a name, a small black tooth. The banner drank the tooth into its weave. Then words bled across the silver cloth in Draven's own war blood. First courage taken from the king's wolf. Mirelle looked up slowly. Draven was still on one knee before her. Silvara stood behind him, no longer fully golden. And under her dimming aura, the court saw a bridal mantle made from stolen wolf hearts begin to breathe. The bridal mantle breathed, not like cloth stirred by air, like something that had learned to live by borrowing the lungs of the dead. Gold moved beneath Lady Silvara Morn's dimming aura in slow, wet pulses. The court saw it now, the shape behind her shining gown, half hidden under light, half revealed by the bloodwater on the floor. A mantle hung from her shoulders, but it was not woven from silk. It was made from torn wolf hearts, flattened into golden hide, stitched together with courage thread, each seam pulsing faintly, as if a battlefield had been trapped beneath her skin. Several nobles turned away. One young guard vomited onto the marble. Silvara did not look ashamed. That was what frightened Morel most. The false bride lifted her chin, pale and furious, while the breathing mantle tightened around her body like a living cloak. Its hidden seams glowed brighter where Draven's wolf shadow had bled. "You see horror," Silvara said, "because you have forgotten what victory costs." The old captain with the empty sleeve rose unsteadily. "Victory does not wear our dead." Silvara's gaze cut to him. "Victory survives because weaker men are spent for stronger crowns." The moonblood banner snapped in Morel's hands. Every name across the cloth darkened. Draven remained on one knee where the courage thread had been pulled from his wolf's ribs. His face was gray with pain, but his eyes had gone cold. Behind him, his wolf shadow was no longer collapsed. It crouched low, shaking, one forepaw solid again, ribs still webbed with gold. Morel wanted to reach for the next knot. She also knew Silvara was waiting for that. The bride's mantle had been exposed, but not broken. If Morel lunged blindly now, Selvara would claim the servant girl attacked the future Luna with corpse magic. The court might fear what it had seen, but fear could be bent back into obedience. Selvara turned to Draven. Majesty, this is why the old washer lines were banned. They make kings feel guilty for using what war leaves behind. Draven pushed himself to his feet. Slowly, every inch cost him. His wolf shadow rose with him, trembling but upright enough for the court to see that Morel's washing had not harmed it. It had helped. No, Draven said. She removed what was killing it. Selvara's smile returned, thin as a blade. For now, Mireille stille. The mantle breathed again. This time the sound came from the banner too. The names on the cloth shivered, as if a cold wind had passed through them. Courage thread still ran from dozens of dead names into Selvara's aura, but one thread pulsed stronger than the rest. The long strand Morel had torn from Draven's wolf, ending in the black tooth, now swallowed into the banner's weave. The tooth moved beneath the cloth. Not dead. Rooted. Morel looked at it, then at the dim gold still wrapped around Draven's wolf shadow. This was not taken once, she said. The hall quieted. Draven turned toward her. Morel swallowed. It is still being taken. Selvara's eyes flashed. The moon blood banner, answered by bleeding fresh letters across its lower edge. First courage was only the hook. More blood followed. Luna right makes the theft permanent. The court erupted. Draven's head turned slowly toward Selvara. The war blessing tomorrow. The Luna vow before the border army. The victory aura the court had praised as proof she could strengthen the crown. Morel understood with a sick drop in her stomach. Selvara did not need to kill Draven's wolf tonight. She only needed it weakened enough to accept the mantle during the rite. Once the court named her Luna, the stolen courage would not merely feed from him. It would own the place his wolf should stand. Selvara's face hardened. Lies in blood are still lies. Draven took one step toward her. The mantle inhaled. Every wounded soldier in the hall gasped at once. Gold light tore from them in thin threads. Not enough to kill, enough to make knees buckle and eyes go empty. The old captain fell back against a pillar. Guards who had been standing tall a moment before sagged like men waking after battle, with no memory of why they had survived. Morel dropped the banner into the red water and dragged it hard across the marble. "Hold your names," she whispered. The banner drank the water and flared dark red. The threads pulling from the soldiers snapped back into their bodies. Several men cried out as if courage returning hurt worse than losing it. Selvara looked at Morel with open hatred now. "You have no right to command the dead. I am not commanding them." Morel pressed both bloodied hands to the banner. "I am asking them not to be stolen twice." The names brightened. Arvenval, Merritt Crow, Hale of the Third Gate, dozens more. The dead did not rise. They did not kneel. They did not become an army for her. They stayed names. And somehow, that was stronger. Selvara lifted both arms. The mantle unfurled. The court screamed as the golden wolf hearts spread behind her like wings, each one beating faintly, each one stitched to the next with shining thread. At the center of the mantle was an empty hollow, shaped exactly like the place in Draven's wolf shadow where the black tooth had been pulled free. A waiting socket. Draven saw it. So did Mirelle. Selvara stepped toward him. "The crown needs a Luna who can carry victory," she said, "not a servant who worships loss." Draven's wolf shadow staggered backward, but the remaining gold threads in its ribs pulled tight. Its paws scraped the floor. Its head lowered against its will, drawn toward the hollow in the mantle. Morel seized the moonblood banner and moved to block the thread. A guard stepped in her path. Not under his own will. Gold glazed his eyes. Draven's voice cut through the hall. "Move." The guard shook violently, caught between king and stolen courage. Selvara smiled. "You see, Majesty, even your command must compete with victory." Morel looked at the guard's trembling hands. He was young, too young to have fought Ash Ravine, too young to know why his own body was betraying him. She lowered the banner instead of pushing past him. Then she wiped the blood-wet cloth over his sword hand. His eyes cleared. The guard stumbled aside, horrified. Mirelle did not wait. She ran. Not gracefully. Not like a heroine in a court song. Like a servant girl with torn knees and red hands, carrying a war banner too heavy with dead names. She reached Draven's wolf shadow just as the golden threads dragged its muzzle toward Selvara's mantle. Morel threw the moonblood banner over the wolf's head. Darkness vanished beneath silver cloth. Draven made a sound that was almost a snarl. Not anger. Bane. The banner clung to the wolf shadow and began to soak. Gold rose through the cloth in violent streaks. Selvara screamed, "Take that off him!" Morel gripped the banner with both hands. Not until it finishes. Draven stood close enough now that his shadow touched her hem. He could have pulled her away. He did not. Instead, he stepped between her and Selvara. A public line. The court saw it. Selvara saw it. Morel felt it without looking up. The banner over the wolf shadow tightened. Then the black tooth inside the weave bit down. A golden root tore loose from the wolf's throat. The moon hall went white. When the light faded, the banner no longer showed Selvara above a dying wolf. It showed tomorrow's war blessing. Draven kneeling before the army, Selvara crowned as Luna, and behind them, the Alpha King's wolf shadow standing empty-eyed inside her mantle, while his living body smiled for a victory already stolen. Across the vision, one sentence bled in letters large enough for every noble to read. At dawn, she will wear the king's wolf. No one moved after the banner showed dawn. The moon hall held its breath around the vision. Alpha King Draven Verhold kneeling before the army, Selvara Morn crowned beside him in pale gold, and behind both of them, his wolf shadow standing empty-eyed inside her living mantle. At dawn, she will wear the king's wolf. The words bled across the moonblood banner until the silver cloth sagged under their weight. Morel kept both hands clenched in the fabric over Draven's wolf shadow. Her arms trembled from holding the banner in place. Beneath it, the king's beast shook violently, gold roots still fighting to sink deeper into its throat. Every time the cloth pulled one thread loose, Selvara's mantle breathed harder. Draven stood between Morel and the false bride. A public line, not a soft one, not romantic, not enough to heal what the court had done to her, but enough that every noble saw the Alpha King place his body between a servant girl and the woman they had nearly crowned Luna. Selvara saw it too. Her face changed in a way no one would have noticed if they had not just seen the thing breathing behind her light. The gentleness slipped. Beneath it waited hunger wearing silk. "You would risk the border army," she said. Draven did not turn from her. "I would risk a stolen blessing. Blessing is what survives the battle." "No," Morel said before fear could stop her. "Blessing is not supposed to need a grave to keep breathing." Several nobles looked at her with startled anger, as if a servant's voice had touched their cups. Selvara smiled. There it was, the opening she wanted. "Listen to her," she said, turning toward the hall. "The washer girl speaks beautifully of graves because graves do not have to defend walls. Dead names do not stand at the northern pass. Dead wolves do not hold bridges when enemy packs come down from the frost." The court shifted. Morel felt it immediately. Fear changing direction. The border war had not ended. Everyone in the moon hall knew it. Tomorrow's war blessing was not ceremony alone. It was meant to send the army out beneath the chosen Luna's light, to make tired soldiers believe they could survive one more march, one more ambush, one more winter of teeth and banners. Selvara knew how to sharpen need until it looked like innocence. She stepped closer, golden mantle pulsing beneath her aura. Ask the captains what happens when courage fails. Ask widows whether they care if victory comes clean. Ask the men at the gates whether they prefer a holy bride or a servant girl who wants to return battlefield fear to the living. Morel looked down. The names on the banner dimmed, not because Selvara was right, because the living were listening. Draven's wolf shadow made a low sound beneath the cloth, half growl, half plea. Draven heard it. His jaw tightened. "Tomorrow's blessing is suspended," he said. The hall broke open. Nobles protested at once. A border lord shouted that the Frostjaw packs would cross before the next moon. A commander demanded to know whether the king meant to send men into war unblessed. A Luna, near the pillars, cried that a crown without victory was only a funeral waiting for its date. Selvara stood amid the panic and glowed. Every frightened voice fed her. Morel saw the gold brighten as fear turned toward the promise of easy courage. Thin threads rose from the crowd, not from dead soldiers now, but from living doubt. Selvara's mantle tasted the hall and began preparing to harvest what fear made vulnerable. Morel gripped the banner harder. The cloth did not move. For the first time since it had awakened, the Moonblood banner seemed heavy in her hands, not silent, waiting. Sarah Rook's voice whispered through the weave. Names must be carried by living mouths. Morel looked down. What? The red thread around her wrist tightened. On the banner, Arvenvale's name flickered. Then Merritt Crow. Then Hale of the Third Gate. Each name brightened only when someone living looked at it with recognition. When the court turned away toward Selvara's promise, the names weakened. Morel understood with a sick ache. The banner could preserve the dead. It could uncover betrayal. But it could not force the living to honor what they preferred to forget. Selvara lifted her hands. Majesty, she said, voice ringing through the hall. If the blessing is suspended, then let the army hear why. Tell the wounded, their dead must keep their courage in the cloth. Tell the border sons their fear is more honorable than victory. Tell them a traitor's daughter has convinced you that ghosts deserve more tenderness than soldiers still breathing. The golden mantle opened behind her. The wolf heart stitched into it beat together. Draven's wolf shadow convulsed under the banner. Morel stumbled, nearly losing her hold. Draven reached back, not touching her, but catching the falling edge of the Moonblood banner in his scarred right hand. The cloth smoked against his skin. The court saw the burn. Draven did not let go. The contact sent a surge through the banner. Names flared red. The vision of dawn twisted, trying to sharpen, and behind Selvara's mantle, Morel saw another image. Not tomorrow, but the army gathered below the east battlements. Thousands of tired wolves kneeling for a blessing that would turn their fear into food. Morel's breath caught. It is not only your wolf, she said. Draven looked at her. If she stands before the army at dawn, she will harvest them too. Selvara's aura flashed white gold. Lie, the banner answered. Not with blood this time. With sound. A single drumbeat rolled through the hall. Then another. War drums. Far below the palace, from the soldiers' yard, drums began to answer, though no hand had struck them. The court went still. The Moonblood banner lifted from Draven's wolf shadow just enough to show the gold roots beneath. Each root pulsed in time with the distant drums. Morel looked toward the open archways. The soldiers outside were already being called. Selvara's smile returned. Zoft. Victorious. The army comes for its blessing, she said. Draven turned to the guards. Seal the yard. No one moved. Not because they defied him, because the gold in Selvara's light had entered their eyes. Morel saw young guards straighten, faces emptied by borrowed bravery. She saw old captains hesitate, shame fighting need. She saw nobles choosing the warmth of Selvara's aura because truth asked them to stand in the cold with the dead. The banner grew heavier. Sarah's voice came again, faint but clear. Make them say the names. Morel looked at the court. Her mouth went dry. That was the price. Not another washing, not more blood from her hands. The living had to speak the dead aloud. Captains would have to name men erased from victory rolls. Nobles would have to admit banners had lied. Draven would have to hear the cost of battles his crown had celebrated. Morel lifted the Moonblood banner higher. The names shone across the cloth. Arvenvale, she said. The first name rang strangely in the hall. The gold around Selvara flickered. Morel turned toward the old captain with the empty sleeve. He understood before she asked. His face crumpled. Merritt Crow, he whispered. The banner flared. Selvara's mantle gave a sharp breath. Another captain stepped back, shaking his head. No. On the cloth, a new name surfaced near his boots. Thomas Redfen. The captain covered his mouth. Morel's voice trembled. Say it. Selvara's eyes went cold. Do not. The captain looked at Draven. Draven's expression was carved from pain, but he nodded once. The captain sank to his knees. Thomas Redfen. The gold thread nearest Selvara snapped. Across the hall, 5 more names rose from the banner. Then 10. Then dozens. The Moonblood banner was not asking for courage. It was asking for confession. Selvara's mantle shrieked under her aura. Outside, the war drums thundered louder. The eastern doors burst open. A line of soldiers entered the moon hall in battle armor, eyes glazed gold, swords drawn, marching toward Selvara as if toward dawn itself. At their head walked a boy no older than 19, carrying the war-blessing crown in both hands. Selvara smiled through the dimming gold. "Too late," she whispered. The crown opened like a jaw of light, and every name on the Moonblood banner began to bleed at once. The war-blessing crown did not shine. It fed. That was the first thing Morel understood when the boy carried it into the moon hall. The crown had been polished for ceremony, shaped from pale gold and black moon iron, its points curved like wolf fangs around an empty center. From the balconies, it looked holy. From the floor, with the Moonblood banner bleeding in her hands, it looked like a mouth waiting to be filled. Every name on the banner opened at once. Blood ran down the silver cloth in streams. Arvenvale blurred. Merritt Crow split at the middle. Hale of the Third Gate trembled as if someone were trying to drag him backward through the weave. Dozens of other names surfaced only to be pulled toward the crown's golden jaw. The soldiers entering the hall did not see the horror. Gold glazed their eyes. They marched behind the boy in a perfect line, boots striking marble in rhythm with the war drums outside. Some were old enough to have fought beside the dead named on the banner. Some were young enough to believe courage was something a crown could pour into them before dawn. The boy at their head held the crown with both hands. His face was pale under the borrowed bravery. Morel saw him tremble, not from fear of battle, from the effort of carrying something hungry. Selvara Morn stepped toward him, her mantle of stolen wolf hearts breathing beneath the torn gold of her aura. "Bring it to me." The boy obeyed. Draven moved. Two gold-eyed soldiers crossed blades before him. The king stopped, not because their steel frightened him, but because the men holding it were his. His wolf shadow snarled under the half-lifted Moonblood banner, still wounded, still wrapped in roots of courage thread that pulled toward Selvara with every drumbeat. "Stand down," Draven said. The soldiers shook. For a heartbeat, their eyes cleared. Then the crown opened wider. The gold returned. Morel felt the names tear harder inside the cloth. She understood the design then. Selvara did not need the court to confess anymore. She did not even need the dead remembered. The war-blessing crown would take every name the banner had exposed and grind it into one final blaze of courage for the army. By dawn, the men would march feeling brave, and the dead would become nameless fuel. The court would call it victory. The banner would go silent forever. Morel looked at the boy. "What is your name?" she asked. He faltered it. Selvara's eyes flashed. "Do not answer her." The boy's mouth trembled. Morel took one step toward him, dragging the bleeding banner with her. Guards shifted, but Draven's hand lifted slightly, warning them back. "Your name," Morel said again. "Not hers, not the crown's. Yours." The boy swallowed. "Lorien." The crown shuddered in his hands. A thin red line opened across his palm, where one golden fang bit into skin. Morel's voice softened. "Lorien what?" His eyes cleared a little more. "Lorien Marsh." The Moonblood banner answered. A new name rose near the cloth's lower edge. Not dead. Living. Lorien Marsh. The letters glowed faintly, uncertain and bright. Selvara went still. Mirelle saw it. The banner could write living names, too. Not to claim them. To keep them from being spent without consent. "Lorien Marsh," Morel said, louder. The boy gasped, as if air had returned to his chest. One golden thread snapped between his hand and the crown. Draven's eyes sharpened. "Say your names," the king ordered the soldiers. Selvara's aura flared. They need blessing, not self-pity. They need to know what is being taken from them. The soldiers stood trapped between command and hunger. The crown pulsed in Lorien's hands, and the gold in their eyes thickened. Mirelle lifted the banner. "You came for courage," she said to them. "Then look at where she gets it." The Moonblood banner stretched wide between her arms. The cloth showed not one battlefield now, but many. Ash Ravine, Red Ford, the Third Gate, Frost Hollow, the nameless ditch where wolves had died without songs. Washerwomen moved among the bodies, pressing names into cloth before the crown's collectors arrived. House-worn riders came after them, gathering courage thread from the dead, binding it into mantles, crowns, and bridal light. Then the vision turned. It showed the soldiers standing in the moon hall now, their fear rising from their bodies in pale threads toward the crown. not dead courage. Living fear, ready to be harvested before it could become courage of its own. A murmur broke through the soldiers' line. One man whispered, Relin Pike. His own name. The banner caught it. Relin Pike. The gold in his eyes cracked. Another soldier staggered. Brynn of Northmere. A third, Jassa Thorn. More living names appeared across the banner, weaving among the dead. Selvaras mantle shrieked. The war-blessing crown snapped open fully. Lorien cried out as golden teeth sank into both his hands. The crown tried to pull him forward toward Selvara, dragging his living name into its empty center. Mirelle ran to him. A soldier grabbed her arm. Draven's wolf shadow lunged under the banner and knocked the man aside, not killing him, only breaking the gold from his eyes. Morel reached Lorien and wrapped the moonblood banner around the crown. The cloth screamed. The crown bit down. Blood, gold, and silver light burst between her hands. Names tore across the fabric, dead and living together, fighting not to be swallowed. Selvara strode toward them, her face no longer beautiful with light, but starved by the loss of it. Give me the crown, Lorien sobbed. I can't let go. Morel looked at his trapped hands, then at the banner twisting around the golden fangs. Her mother's voice came through the weave, strained and urgent. A crown cannot eat a name that is answered. Morel turned toward the soldiers. Answer him. No one understood. Say his name, she cried. All of you. Draven's voice followed hers, rough with pain. Lorien Marsh. The old captain said it next. Lorien Marsh. Then Relin Pike. Then Brynn of Northmere. Then dozens. The name filled the moon hall, passed from soldier to soldier, until it no longer belonged to Selvara's hunger. The crown convulsed. Its teeth loosened from the boy's palms. Mirelle pulled. Lorien fell backward, free, but the crown kept the banner. Its golden jaw clamped down on the moonblood cloth and began dragging every dead name toward its hollow center. Selvara smiled through the ruin of her light. You saved one boy, she whispered. How noble. The crown swallowed Arvenvale's name. The banner went dark where he had been. Morel felt the loss like a hand closing around her throat. Then, from the empty place in the cloth, Arvenvale's voice spoke one last time. Wash her, girl. The hall froze. Call the king to carry us. Draven looked at the banner. Morel looked at him. Selvara's smile vanished. The crown began to turn toward the Alpha King. The crown turned toward the Alpha King. Slowly, hungrily, its golden jaws still clamped around the moonblood banner, chewing through the silver cloth where Arvenvale's name had vanished. Blood ran from the torn weave in long red lines. The empty place where his name had been looked worse than a wound. It looked like forgetting. Draven Verhold stood in the path of the crown with his wolf shadow crouched behind him, ribs still laced with gold roots, one forepaw solid, the rest trembling between life and collapse. Selvara's mantle pulsed from across the hall, answering the crown with every beat of its stolen wolf hearts. Morel held the far edge of the banner in both hands. The crown pulled. Her feet slid across the marble. Lorien Marsh lay behind her, freed but bleeding from both palms. Around him, soldiers repeated his name under their breath, as if afraid silence might hand him back. Lorien Marsh. Lorien Marsh. Living names held him. But Arvenvale was gone from the cloth, and the crown wanted more. Call the king to carry us, Arven's vanished voice had said. The words had not sounded like worship. They had sounded like a burden no dead man could lift alone. Selvara stepped into the bleeding light with the war-blessing mantle spread behind her. The golden wolf hearts beat harder now, starved by the names the soldiers had reclaimed. Yes, she said softly. Let the king carry them. That is what kings are for. Morel looked at Draven. Do not, she said. The hall heard the servant girl forbid the Alpha King. Gasps moved through the court. Draven's eyes stayed on the crown. They asked to be carried, Morel said, not consumed. Selvara smiled. How quickly washer blood gives commands to royal blood. Morel ignored her. She kept her gaze on Draven, on the scarred hand still burned from touching the banner, on the hidden left hand beneath his cloak that had moved when her name was first spoken, on the wolf shadow trying to stand because dead soldiers had finally been heard. If you take them like courage, she said, The crown will make you another mouth for her. The golden jaws snapped tighter. Another name blurred. Hale of the Third Gate. Draven saw it. So did the old captain. So did the soldiers. So did every noble who had spent years applauding victories without asking what names had been scrubbed out of them. The king stepped forward. Morel's grip tightened. Draven did not reach for the crown. He turned toward the court. Every face changed under his gaze. Lords straightened. Captains lowered their eyes. Soldiers stood half free of Selvara's gold, afraid of what his next words might demand. Draven removed his cloak. The movement was simple. The effect was not. His hidden left hand emerged. The court recoiled. It was not wounded like his right. It was marked. From wrist to knuckle, black gold thread lay beneath the skin, fine as veins, glowing faintly in time with Selvara's mantle. Courage thread had not only been tied to his wolf shadow, it had entered his body. Mirel's breath caught. Draven looked at the threads in his own hand, as if he had known they were there, but not what they meant. After Ash Ravine, he said, I woke with this. Selvara went still. The room changed again. Draven's voice did not rise. It did not need to. I was told it was a victory mark, proof that the dead had blessed their king. The Moonblood banner shivered. The crown paused in its chewing. My commanders told me the army rallied because I stood. My court told me House Morn carried the blessing that saved us. My throne told me not to question survival when the border still burned. His eyes moved to the names bleeding across the cloth. I did not ask who paid for my courage. The words struck the hall harder than confession. They were not enough. Mirella knew it. So did the banner. The dead did not need a king to feel sad before them. They needed him to carry the truth where power could no longer call it servant superstition. Draven lowered himself to one knee. Not before Selvara. Not before Mirel. Before the Moonblood banner. The court went utterly silent. Selvara's face tightened. Majesty, rise. Draven did not. His wolf shadow bowed behind him, not from weakness this time, but with him. Mirel felt the banner grow warm in her hands. Draven placed his marked left hand flat on the blood-soaked marble. I name the debt of my crown, he said. The moon hall trembled. Selvara's mantle shrieket. The war-blessing crown snapped open, as if to swallow the words, but the banner twisted in Mirel's grip and struck the crown across its golden jaw. Mirel understood. The king could speak the debt, but the banner needed her hands to keep the crown from eating it. She wrapped the bleeding cloth around her forearms and pulled hard. The crown dragged against her, golden teeth cut into the banner. Pain tore through her arms as if the cloth had become part of her skin. Draven began to speak the names. Arvenval. The empty place on the banner flared. Not fully restored, but lit. Merritt Crow. The old captain sobbed. Hale of the Third Gate. A wolf howled somewhere beyond the palace. More names rose through the cloth, faster than Draven could read. Tomas Redfen. Rellan Pike's father. Brynn of Northmere's brother. Jossa Thorne's mother. Not all soldiers. Not all men. Banner washers, scouts, stable wolves, boys who carried water to the wounded and never returned. Draven spoke until blood ran from his nose. The black gold threads in his left hand brightened, pulling toward Selvara's mantle. Mirel saw the danger before anyone else. The more he named the dead, the more the courage thread tried to claim his guilt as fuel. Selvara did not only feed on pride, she could feed on remorse too, if he offered it without witness. Answer him, Mirel cried to the hall. No one moved. She turned on them with the banner straining against her arms. He cannot carry names you still refuse to speak. The old captain rose first. Merritt Crow, he said again, louder. Then Lorien, voice shaking. Arven Vale. A soldier beside him said, Hale of the Third Gate. One by one, the living answered the dead. The crown jerked. Its golden jaws cracked along one side. Selvara screamed, not in pain, but fury. Her mantle threw open all its wolf hearts. Gold flooded the hall. For a terrible breath, every soldier looked brave again. Too brave. Empty-eyed brave. The kind of courage that needed no memory, no grief, no name. Mirel's knees buckled. Draven reached toward her, then stopped himself before touching the banner and feeding the crown more royal blood. That restraint nearly broke her. Salvara stepped forward, beautiful and monstrous in the golden blaze. You think names win wars? Names fill graves. I give men the strength to survive them. No, Morel gasped, pulling the banner back from the crown's teeth. You give them the strength to die without asking why. The banner answered. Every dead name on the cloth burned red. Every living name burned white. The two lights met in the center, where the black wolf crest opened its mouth wider than it ever had. Sarah Rook's voice came through, clear enough for the whole court. Now wash the mantle. Salvara went white. Morel looked at the false bride. The mantle of wolf hearts beat behind her, vast and golden and hungry. There was no basin left, no clean water, only blood, names, and a war hall full of living mouths finally speaking what had been buried. Morel understood. She lifted the moonblood banner from the crown's jaw and hurled it toward Salvara. The cloth flew across the moon hall like a wounded moon. Salvara raised both hands. The mantle opened to catch it. At the last second, Draven's wolf shadow lunged. Not at Silver. At the banner. It seized the trailing edge in its teeth and dragged the cloth down over the mantle, covering the stolen wolf hearts in silver and blood. Selvade screamed. The banner wrapped around her light. Then every name in the hall spoke at once. Dead and living. Soldier and washer. King and servant. The gold went black, and beneath the covered mantle, something began knocking from inside Salvara's chest. Not a heart. A trapped wolf. The knocking came from inside Salvara Morn. Not from the mantle. Not from the war-blessing crown. From beneath her ribs. The moonblood banner had wrapped around her golden light, covering the stolen wolf hearts in silver cloth, blood, and names. Salvara stood trapped beneath it, both hands clawing at the fabric as her aura turned black thread by thread. The court stared as the beautiful victory blessing they had praised for months convulsed like a living thing being drowned. Then came the knock again. Slow, hard, desperate. Draven's wolf shadow released the trailing edge of the banner and staggered back, its muzzle streaked with gold and blood. It was still weak, still laced with roots. But its silver eyes had cleared enough to look at the shape moving beneath Salvara's chest. Morel felt the banner pull against her arms. Not toward Salvara's throat, toward her heart. Sarah Rook's voice came through the weave, low and sorrowful. Not all thieves begin as empty hands. Mireille froze. Salvara heard it too, her face twisted, not with guilt, but terror. Do not, she whispered. Draven took one step closer. What is inside you? Salvara's laugh broke apart. Victory. The banner tightened. The knocking became a scratch. A whine followed it. Small. Young. The old captain with the empty sleeve covered his mouth. A cub. The word moved through the moon hall like a blade drawn slowly from a wound. Morel looked at the false bride and understood too late that House Morn had not only taught Salvara to wear stolen courage, they had made her into its vessel. Whatever wolf had once belonged to her had been buried under the mantle, starved beneath borrowed bravery, until even Salvara could not tell hunger from power. For one breath, pity tried to enter the room. Salvara killed it herself. If you pity me, she hissed, I will hate you more than I hate the dead. Morel did not lower the banner. I am not pitying you. She stepped closer, though every instinct warned against it. The cloth burned in her hands. Names pressed against her palms, dead soldiers, dead washers, living boys, wounded captains, a king's marked blood. War witness blood did not give her a throne. It gave her the terrible work of touching what others wanted covered. I am washing what your house buried inside you. Salvara screamed and drove both hands into the banner. Gold erupted. For a moment the moon hall filled with the old lie. Courage without grief, victory without debt, light without names. Soldiers lifted their heads, nobles leaned toward warmth. Even Draven's wolf shadow trembled as the remaining roots in its ribs pulled toward that golden blaze. Mireille nearly lost her grip. Then Draven spoke. Arvenval. The gold faltered. The old captain answered. Merritt Crow. Lorien Marsh, palms still bleeding, stepped forward. Hail of the third gate. More voices joined. Tumas Redfen. Yassa Thorn. Brynn of Northmere. Sarah Rook. At her mother's name, Morel's hands steadied. The living spoke the dead not as spell, not as worship, but as debt remembered aloud. Every name struck the mantle like water on burning iron. Gold peeled away from the wolf hearts. The banner drank the stolen light and returned it as red thread, writing the names deeper into the cloth so they could not be swallowed again. Selvara collapsed to one knee. The knocking inside her chest became a howl. Morel reached the place over her heart and pressed the moonblood banner flat against it. "Come out clean," she whispered. The banner sank inward. Selvara arched back. A small wolf shadow tore free from her chest. It landed on the marble between them, no larger than a hound, thin and shaking, its pale gold fur matted with black thread. Its eyes were not cruel, only starved. Around its throat hung a collar woven from courage thread and tiny wolf heart seams. The court stared. Selvara stared hardest of all. For the first time, her face looked young. "No," she said, but there was no command left in it. Morel knelt before the little wolf. The banner lowered with her. She did not touch the cub shadow with bare hands. Not yet. She laid the cloth on the marble and let the names surround it. "Whose are you?" she asked. The cub shadow shivered. The collar tightened. Selvara reached toward it, but Draven's voice stopped her. "No." Not loud. Final. Morel placed one bloodied finger on the collar. The moonblood banner opened under her touch, showing a chamber in house mourn. A young girl, in gold training robes, standing before a mirror, her own wolf shadow trembling behind glass, while older hands stitched courage thread into a bridal mantle. Selvara, younger, afraid, watching her wolf sealed away so she could become what her house called victory blessed. Then the vision shifted. The same girl, older now, choosing the mantle again and again, feeding it, enjoying the way soldiers bowed when she entered, learning that stolen courage could feel like love if enough people praised it. The vision closed. Mirelli looked at Selvara. There was tragedy there, but not innocence. "You were used," Morel said. "Then you used others." Selvara's eyes filled with hate because the words left no clean place to hide. Morel pulled the collar. It resisted. Draven's wolf shadow stepped beside her, weak but standing. It lowered its muzzle to the collar and bit down on the courage thread. Silvara gasped. Draven dropped to one knee as pain crossed his face, but he did not pull his wolf back. Morel pulled again. The collar snapped. The little wolf shadow collapsed into clean, pale light and rushed not back into Selvara's chest, but around her, circling once like a creature deciding whether the body that had caged it was still home. Selvara reached for it, trembling. The cub shadow stepped away. That broke her more than accusation had. The mantle of stolen wolf hearts shriveled beneath the moonblood banner. One by one, the hearts dissolved into names, not bodies, not ghosts, names. The cloth took them gently now, no longer bleeding wildly, only writing what had been owed. The war-blessing crown cracked on the marble. Its golden jaws fell open and did not close again. Silence followed. A real silence this time. No drums. No borrowed courage. No golden warmth telling frightened men they were brave. Only the cold moon hall, a torn servant girl, a wounded king, and a banner heavy with the dead. Draven rose slowly. His wolf shadow rose with him, not fully healed, but alive. The black gold threads under his left hand had faded to scars. He turned to the court. "I will not march an army under stolen courage," he said. "At dawn, the war blessing is cancelled. Every name on that banner will be read before the gates. Every house that harvested courage, thread will answer before crown and pack." A noble lord began. "Majesty, the border. The border will be held by soldiers who know what they carry," Draven said, "not by men fed another wolf's heart." The lord fell silent. Selvara knelt on the marble, the last gold gone from her gown. Without the aura, she looked neither radiant nor monstrous, only human, and therefore answerable. Draven looked at her. "Lady Selvara Morn, you will live." A bitter laugh left her. "Mercy?" "No," he said. "Memory. You will name every heart in that mantle, every soldier, every washer, every wolf your house unmade. When your voice fails, you will write. When your hand fails, you will listen while others read them to you. Black-red thread rose from the ruined banner and circled her wrists. Selvara did not fight. Perhaps she finally knew no borrowed courage remained to help her. Draven turned then to Morel. The court watched too closely. Morel felt the danger of that attention. Courts like to replace one lie with another. Traitor's daughter could become blessed witness too quickly, and worship could swallow a girl almost as completely as shame. Draven seemed to know it. He did not reach for her. He bowed his head instead. Not deeply enough to make theater. Enough to make truth visible. Mirel Rook, he said, your mother did not die a traitor. She died carrying a truth my crown was too weak to receive. Mirel's throat tightened. The moon-blood banner softened in her hands. And you? She asked, voice rough. Are you strong enough now? The court flinched at her boldness. Draven did not. No, he said. Not yet, but I will begin by not asking you to make my shame look noble. That answer hurt. That was why she trusted it more than a vow. He looked at the banner. What do you want done with it? For a moment, Morel saw her mother's hands in the red thread. Washer hands, war witness hands, hands that had carried names until rope took breath from them. Morel lifted the moonblood banner. It does not go back to the vault. No. It does not hang behind your throne as proof of your mercy. No. It goes to the war gates, she said, where soldiers leaving for battle can read who paid before them. Draven nodded. So it will be. Dawn came pale through the high windows. Note golden. Clean. The moon hall opened its doors to the soldier yard, where thousands waited for a blessing that would not come. Instead, they heard names. Arvin Vale, Merritt Crow, Hale of the Third Gate, Sarah Rook, hundreds more, read by captains, servants, widows, and finally by the Alpha King himself. Mirel stood beside the banner, not behind Draven, not beneath Selvara's old place, but where the cloth could touch her hand if it needed to breathe. Draven's wolf shadow sat at his side, scarred and thin, but alive. When the last name was read, the moonblood banner stirred in the morning wind. Across its silver cloth, new words formed in red thread. The washer kept faith. Morel closed her eyes. For the first time since she was 10 years old, the rope around her mother's memory loosened. Draven's voice came beside her, quiet enough that only she heard. When this war ends, if you choose to leave, I will send guards to protect the road and no song to claim you. Morel opened her eyes. And if I choose to stay? Then no one will call your hands filthy in my hall again. She looked at him then, not as savior, not as king, as a man whose wolf still had healing to do, and whose crown still owed more names than one dawn could repay. That is a beginning, she said. The banner moved between them, red thread, glinting in the pale light. And somewhere inside the cloth, among the dead who had finally been named, Sarah Rook laughed softly, not with joy, not yet, but with peace.